Greetings, fellow Amblemites. Tiki here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
7 years ago, we set out to celebrate the films of Steven Spielberg by providing commentary on his work he never did. After all, he's done so much for us, it's the least we could do for him. This year, the journey comes to its inevitable end. After the personal story of the Fablemans, we'll be transitioning from commentaries to retrospectives for the stories that remain. Why? Because it takes an archaeological dig to access some of these gems, and we got a memo. So, for the last time, let's explore Spielberg's past in 8mm, go on a road trip with a captive audience before the scary truck gets us, or everything blows up in a comedic fashion. And while we're at it, let's kick the can around a little on Spielberg month. Do 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 do. Dragon, you notice I'm doing the ET theme a little bit more hesitantly this time around.
Yeah, I still we're out of sync on that one, but that
I know. Oh man, Dragon, we're talking 1941.
Yeah, I noticed. Yeah.
And I just want to preface, this is a fascinating movie. This movie did not disappoint in terms of just. Dragon, I feel like this movie didn't disappoint both in terms of, it is certainly a train wreck. There are certainly train wrecking qualities to this movie that we will break down for sure. Not a question. But honestly, it also kind of doesn't disappoint as a fascinating little sort of stepping stone. And I almost feel kind of a missing part of, our inherent knowledge of Spielberg's films. And what's even more interesting, and I'm sure you're going to get into it in the background, is that this is essentially the jumping off point for Spielberg's working relationship with Bob Zemeckis and Bob Gale. So, there's so many interesting things about this film, and I'm excited to talk about them. I think there are some wonderful set pieces in here, some really cool practical effects, a couple bits that genuinely made me laugh, but yeah, overall, I don't know, Dragon. I mean, I feel like this film has as much working against it as it does going for it, because, much like how it has going for it, it's got sort of it's a fascinating train wreck that also has some really interesting history behind it. But going against it, the humor is just incredibly dated, just incredibly, horrendously, cringe-inducingly dated. And then also just plot-wise, this thing is a huge mess. It's a huge mess, Dragon. But yeah, stuff to say, I'm very interested in breaking it all down. So, what do you think, Dragon? Is it one of Spielberg's unsung masterpieces?
Yes. No, I'm kidding. All right. So, so there was a lot of dread on this one. Yeah, this is famously, the original, dip, at least critically, for Spielberg. This is the big. It is over-reported that it was a financial flop. It just didn't make as much money as the other Spielberg movies at that time, which were monumentally successful. But this was again. This is the first. This is very much like the God Bleeds movie for Spielberg. It's that's the thing. Blood in the Water is okay. He is a man after all. He's not ethereal at all.
Right.
Anyway, so here's the thing. I respect Spielberg wanting to do a fun movie with his friends. I get that. That's fine. He's having a blast, literally, making this movie. And you gotta remember, the acorn of the idea on this is clever. It is clever. There's actually a real life basis for a lot of
Mhm.
this movie, if you can believe it. I don't just mean the whole 1941 setting. I mean, a lot of the events that happen in this movie are based on real life.
It's a really interesting kind of like amalgamation of like weird sort of stranger than fiction events that took
Yeah,
place during this time period. Yeah.
exactly. It's interesting seeing in Spielberg's early work that there was kind of like a kind of a real life basis for a lot of this stuff.
Mhm.
Anyway,
I
so
also feel like we've been bringing up Gunsmog from the Fablemans a lot during these these early films, and I feel like this is like the closest that we're gonna get to like Gunsmog, directed by Sammy Fableman, like a feature, like a full Hollywood production of something like that, essentially.
so here's the thing. At the end of the day, with this movie, I have to side with the this criticism I heard. I think I full heartedly agree with, in that this film might have been better if it went the original route that it was planned for. Originally, this was supposed to be a black comedy satire instead of like a screwball comedy.
Hmm.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think again, I think in pairing with the inspiration for this film, I think like a black comedy, kind of like I think the satirical comedy in this really works. And yeah, that's the thing. There are laughs in here for sure, but the flow and the pacing is just not good at all. Not
No,
at all.
no, absolutely not.
And I think at the end of the day, Spielberg he got ambitious doing a story that wasn't personal for him, as opposed to all the other films. Doing something like that this early on. I think that's kind of like he kind of chickens before he hatched on that one. It was the
Mhm.
end result is we have a very forgettable screwball comedy with great production values.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. I was amazed at some of the shots, and especially in like the last act of this film. Man, it really does turn into like a bona fide Spielberg blockbuster with a really shitty script and really shitty editing.
Yeah,
All right. Um. Okay. Care to break down some backstory then?
yeah, yeah,
It was a tale of two Bobs.
exactly. So Bob Zemeckis and Bob Gale, the filmmakers behind Back to the Future and many other films in their own rights. Bob Gale, also a comic book writer.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so of course, famously paired on Back to the Future. They they were buddies. They were in USC, and they were very much a duo. They knew John Milius. You know the great John Milius.
Of course.
Yeah, so John Milius. He kind of took the boys under his wing. He basically intended to do kind of what Francis Ford uh, what Francis Ford Coppola did for him, which was he put him on Apocalypse Now. It really helped him out when he needed it. So it was kind of he's trying to return the favor, put a little good karma back in the world.
Hmm.
So so basically he loved how they wrote, and he vowed to get him work as per the whole Coppola thing. So they basically they turned in a couple things, and eventually they ended on this script for that was originally called The Night the Japs Attacked.
Yeah, yeah. Thank God they didn't go with that title, man.
Yeah, when Spielberg got around to it, says, yeah, we got to change that title.
Oh
Yeah.
God.
So yeah, basically it was a hysteria on the home front story. Of course, see, Bob Gale did tons of research, and this is before the internet. Kids, he had to go to the library to do it. So he went to the library, did research, and basically came across centrally three. There are a whole bunch of little factoids, but primarily three real life events were the inspiration for kind of our three of our main plot points for this film. So it's actually a fascinating story. It's there was this essentially there was this I guess he was like a Japanese. He bought oil. He bought oil
Mhm.
overseas. There's this Japanese boat captain. I don't think he was necessarily a submarine guy. He might have been, but the point he had this Japanese guy, and like he bought. Essentially, when he got oil one time, he slipped, and he fell into a cactus, and everyone laughed. And I know it's gonna sound ridiculous. This is what happened. He slipped and he fell in a cactus, and he lost a lot of face in front of his employees and everything. He lost a lot of face, and 10 years later, as like revenge, he just went crazy. And I guess he had some ties to he had ties to submarines and stuff. Basically, what he did was there was a plan to basically, we're gonna have like 12 submarines, and we're gonna, Japanese initially tried to launch an attack, like we're gonna hit like just broadly, like with 12 subs, we're gonna sneak in, we're gonna hit just attack like a coastal side of the place.
That
Essentially,
story is wild to me, especially because like I'm on the West Coast, and obviously the only major terrorist attack that we've lived through is on the East Coast. And so it's like, I could only imagine if there was something like that going down, with me on the West Coast. Like, it is a crazy scenario, and just the uncertainty of it.
Yeah. So I'm botching a little bit of the crucial details, I'm sure here, but essentially, 12 submarines were supposed to do like a sneak attack, and essentially, thanks to the U.S. defense, like 11 of the 12 subs were redirected, and everything were kind of blocked. One got through and basically tried, no, I can't blow up the oil tanker. It's going to cause too much damage, but I'm going to try and hit where that cactus was.
Mm-hmm.
That's essentially what the logic was there. So anyway, so in doing all this, there was kind of like a false air raid that went on, which led to a blackout and led to a lot of madness happening. So let's see. So there was that. There was an actual man who had a machine, like a giant anti-aircraft machine gun put on his front lawn. That was real. And then they had the Zoot Suit riot, where essentially you had, back in the day, a lot of Hispanic gangs actually wore Zoot Suits. Aside from jitterbugging, you had basically got the guys, Hispanic guys wearing Zoot Suits, and it was kind of like a gang movement. And the servicemen didn't like them, didn't like the outfits, didn't like any of it, and they mixed it up. Turned into a riot. So Spielberg, he was sold in this movie through the Ferris wheel gag in the third act,
which is probably the most memorable set piece in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, Spielberg, he took on this movie just because he wanted to blow stuff up. That's the main reason.
That is where the Sammy Fableman energy in this movie truly is, right?
Yeah, fun fact: in this movie, there is a scene where we take a young man, we throw his head down on the train tracks, of like a little toy train that's coming for him. So,
oh God, Dragon, I'm glad you bring up that specific moment, because you know what else that calls to mind for me, right?
What?
This is pretty niche, but I think you're gonna get it. You remember that moment in Kick-Assia?
Yeah.
It's just a toy train. Not gonna say the name of the person who is involved. I mean, Phalis is the one who says that line. Phalis is fine.
There you go. That's all we need to say. Phalis has a funny line. Anyway. So here's the thing. Ultimately, what happened was, this was Bob Zemeckis' story. Okay, Bob Zemeckis wanted to direct this. Okay, but they were very unknown at this time. Again, this is like we were kind of talked about recently on the Roger Rabbit retrospective. But Bob Zemeckis wanted to do a lot of really cool movies, but he was just very green. The movies that he did just were not critically getting the buzz that he needed. Like, this is pre-Romancing the Stone and Back to the Future, so they were very much like used cars and stuff. But this is what they had to offer. Again, they were very much trained in the screwball comedy. So they didn't have the cachet to do it, so they went to their buddy John Milius. John Milius loved it, and he would have done a great job with it. But John Milius was in the middle of his passion project, which was Big Wednesday, the surfing culture one. So he couldn't direct it. So that led to them, again, talking to Spielberg. Spielberg says, he just kind of wanted Spielberg's wanted a break from...
Spielberg would never be this casual about signing on to a movie these days. That's what's so funny about this.
That's literally it, though. Spielberg literally is on the record and saying, I mean, at that time, this is like after he made like the big thing about it. He did Jaws, which is like the big literal splash that he made in the end. It was the blockbuster. He changed the game. He proved like I can direct. And then the next thing he did was the passion project that he had, which is Close Encounters, which had something to say about him and his life and everything. It's the story of his parents, the science and the tech, the science and the artistry, music and math. And
unlike a lot of blank check movies that came after big blockbusters that were like, served as director passion projects, looking at you, Beau is Afraid. The Close Encounters was very, very successful financially.
Yeah. So that's the thing. So that was the big story he wanted to tell. So he was kind of between movies in a sense. He was just kind of like, okay, well, this is kind of a fun project to do in the meantime while I think about it. He didn't really think like it's good. What's it going to do for my career or anything? It's just okay, let's do a fun.
It's not like this is going to be the embarrassing black sheep of my filmography or anything.
Yeah. So again, he just didn't really pay it much mind. It was just like he wanted to do something funny. He just wanted to do a movie with his friends. It's really ultimately what it was.
It's essentially a Brat Pack project, Dragon. That's the thing. I mean,
essentially.
It very much feels less like, we always talk about like the whole like a Steven Spielberg movie or a movie directed by Steven Spielberg. This feels like neither. It just straight up feels like a Brat Pack collaboration, for better.
I mean, again, this feels like something we kind of mentioned in the other early films, and this feels like again the same Fableman thing of like he's making a movie with the Boy Scouts. He's getting a bunch of his friends together and just making a movie,
except just on a much bigger budget.
Exactly. So let's see. So anyway, so Spielberg. It's so funny. So many people warned him against doing this movie the way he was going to do it. Two people of note in particular, I should mention.
Yup, I know one of them you're going to bring up.
Apparently, Stanley Kubrick warned Steven Spielberg basically he should go more the Doctor Strangelove route, which would have been more the satire route than.
Which I'm sure was probably like a big original inspiration for the script. I'm sure.
I mean, assumedly, yeah, because you got to remember, Zemeckis wrote it with black comedy in mind.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the route it was originally intended. It was going to be more serious, but yeah. So most likely, Doctor Strangelove is a big influence there. So Kubrick, advised him like, hey, don't make it a comedy. Don't make it like an all-in-out comedy. And Spielberg, of course, one of two big intersecting points he has with Mr. Kubrick. Now the other one is funnier. The other one's way funnier. Okay. So John Wayne, of all people.
I love this story.
So apparently, Steven Spielberg was invited to Joan Crawford's wedding because, again, his big break was the first person he ever truly directed in the business was Joan Crawford in one of the Night Gallery, I believe it was, like one of the TV things that he did early on that we alluded to in at the end of the Fablemans. Anyway. So because of that, he was invited to the wedding, and John Wayne kind of took him on. John Wayne took him under his wing a little bit there, saying, "Oh, look at this kid! It's almost like a roast atmosphere of like, why is this young buck here at Joan Crawford? All of us old people at Joan Crawford's wedding, at Joan Crawford's funeral, sorry, her wake. I was thinking wake, and I mixed it with anyway.
I was gonna say I wasn't exactly like I wasn't completely sure, but I'm glad you did correct that. I was like, wait, I thought it was her wake, not her wake.
No, yeah, it's her wake, yeah. But the wake was kind of like had like somewhat of a roast vibe going on, so almost like a wedding toast, I think.
Right, yeah.
Anyway, so John Wayne, so basically, he mentioned like, oh yes, I heard you did really good work with her, and he mentioned, oh yeah, I'm working on a movie. Oh really? Send me the script. So I think Spielberg offered him the part of General. He's told him. So General Stillwell is a real guy. So he's absolutely a real guy from real life. And it's a cool role. Anyone would like a John Wayne would absolutely go for this.
John Wayne was literally like geeking out about it when the name was brought up.
That's the thing. When the name was brought up, hey, we want you to play this famous general from World War II. It's like, oh yeah, I love this. Sure, yeah, just send me the script. And he sent him the script, and then John Wayne called him. And John Wayne, I mean, respectfully, you get the sense of, but I don't think I think he got down the brass.
I don't think it was very respectful, Dragon. I really don't think it was.
I mean, here's the thing. When I say respectful, I mean I think it was just him giving like the tough love, like I'm just going to tell it to you straight, kid, sort of thing. It's like. This is like I think he was a little offended by it, but by the same token,
he was horribly offended by it.
No, yes, he was horribly offended by it, but I'm saying they patched things up afterwards. So it wasn't the last time they spoke. So in that sense, it feels like he was genuinely trying to help him despite being very offended by it. So John Wayne was incensed, saying, "What is this? This is anti-American. You can't make. I was in that war. You can't."
Isn't it crazy how John Wayne, of all people, was forward-thinking enough to think that this film was going to be very problematic for him?
Exactly, and I think at the end of the day, debatably, John Wayne was right. I mean, maybe not about the un-American thing, but still, I mean, the majority of which is like, I mean, honestly, I think Stillwell got represented quite nicely. I think everyone else, though, that's the thing. Anyway, so John Wayne advised him not to do this movie very aggressively. Like, no, don't do this movie. You're better than this, kid. Though Spielberg did not heed the advice of these wise Hollywood men. Hollywood! So,
Oh God! Oh God!
okay, so we have they went to Universal. So basically, Universal and Columbia co-produced this. They flipped a coin to see who would end up like producing and distributing. Universal ended up distributing, Columbia ended up making it, which is one of the other reasons it's kind of hard to find these days.
Oh,
And let's see. So Spielberg had this mentality of like he wanted to make it for not a penny over 11. I don't know if it got turned into T-shirts or not during the production, but it went way over $11 million. Became a running gag. So a lot of endings were pitched for this movie. The most notable ending that I kind of wonder, part of me kind of wishes they went with, was actually really dark. It was going to be one was one of our, I think, our pilot characters, either a pilot character or Kelso. I'm not sure which one was. The faux pilot, I should say, was gonna like bomb her. Was gonna be the bomber at Hiroshima, saying, "This is for that dance you guys ruined." You're gonna drop drop the Hiroshima bomb. Anyway, so the last couple things out here. So the test screenings for this were very bad. I mean, shocking. I mean, Tiki, they were literally, because the sound was so loud from all the explosions and stuff in the theaters back then, they were covering their ears.
oh God!
The last thing you want to see in a movie screening is like covering ears, like ducking in cover from the movie. So Spielberg and pals, they knew it was doomed, but they kind of went at it with like a screw you mentality when they went to the premiere. Like, no one's gonna like this but us. We made a movie for us. Like, Spielberg didn't read the reviews till like 5 years after the fact.
Yeah, and it's like the problem is, it's like I very much respect the whole like wanting to do a movie with your friends and not really caring about the critical opinion and everything, but like.
Yeah.
God damn, some of the humor in this movie is so fucking problematic.
Oh yeah. Okay, so
Coming from someone who generally doesn't get offended by stuff like that.
Okay, so one last tidbit I'd love to share about 1941. So, believe it or not, this connects to the movie Galaxy Quest.
Okay.
So Galaxy Quest, which I forget how directly, because I know it's DreamWorks movie, so I think Spielberg was there. I don't know if he's just there because of the whole DreamWorks thing or if he directly produced that film. Point being, Spielberg was involved one way or another, so he was on the set. He visited the set one day during the best dramatic scene that Tim Allen had in that movie. And so Tim Allen's given this great performance, and Spielberg basically walks up to him afterwards and says, "Hey, what you did was really good there." And Tim Allen, brushing off the compliment, what he says, he kind of like, "Hey, come here, you. Hey, guys, look who it is. He directed 1941.
God. Oh, no.
Which you get the sense, and like Spielberg turned ashen. It's just like, oh, no, don't bring up 1941.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, it's always like, like getting as personal as we've gotten with Spielberg, both through the Fablemans and just through this process of watching literally all of his films. Dragon, I felt so much secondhand embarrassment for the guy watching this thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, man. Here's the thing, though. I believe, I still hold firm that Tim actually enjoyed 1941. I don't think that was like him taking a pot shot at Spielberg. I think that was him actually, because it feels like kind of like the machismo kind of stuff that he's really
Well, yeah, I was going to say, if any comedian does enjoy something like this, then Tim Allen slightly problematic.
Don't say it all defeatedly.
I'm just saying it is what it is.
No, I'm talking about like the home improvement side of things.
All right.
And explosions and pilots and that sort of stuff. I think he likes it for those reasons. But anyway. Yeah.
Okay, so Drag, we got a bunch of comments right off the bat here.
Yeah,
some of them, folks, I'm gonna save for when we get to them in the movie, but just gonna read off some general ones here. Richard's victims, still with that shit avatar that he hasn't changed. Before the internet, as a young buck in his 20s, I know nothing of this time you speak of. Ooh. Dragon, do you remember? I know you're a few years younger than me. Do you remember pre-internet days?
Let's see. I mean, just early enough that it was like basically it was a big brick on a table. So probably no, not pre-internet.
Yeah, I lived through it all, man. 1990 was a very interesting year to be born because, like, when I was a very little kid, the internet, like, I'm sure it was around, but it just wasn't a big, widespread thing. Then, obviously, around 95, 96, it starts rolling into houses. by 2000. By the time I was like a preteen, I had it in my house, but it was like dial up, and so I saw that, and I saw the whole evolution of the internet. Anyways, Slasher Fred is in the comments. He says, "I've noticed how this film parodies some Spielberg classics, like the first attack scene in Jaws or the chicken woman in Duel." Yes, we'll get to the Jaws thing really quickly. Urge Victims, it's like a sophisticated Michael Bay. Dragon, I actually, you know what? This might be a weird comparison. I'm not sure how you're going to feel about it. I got like, and I am not saying that this movie is literally as good as any of this director's movies, even his lower tier ones, but I got kind of a bit of a Wes Anderson vibe.
I don't know about that.
Honestly, mostly just from the way that this, like the ensemble cast and the quirky comedy. I don't know. It's a bit of a stretch.
I mean, I can look. I can see like a lick of what you're talking about there, but
All right. This movie looks like something John Landis would have directed. Landis was part of that crew, right?
What he had a cameo, but he was not like involved in the. He wasn't involved in the movie, but it's very obviously with Belushi. There's a lot of Animal House comparisons.
But was he involved in the Brat Pack, just in general?
I mean, he was. I think he was friends. I mean, I don't know if he was directly part of the Brat Pack, but he was there. At the very least, he was there a lot. I don't know if he was like directly.
Kind of feels like someone who'd be sort of like on the fringes of the Brat Pack.
That's the thing. It definitely feels like yeah.
All right. Richard's Victim says Spielberg then. Yeah, sure. I'll do the goofy World War II movie. Spielberg now. No, I will not do Superman. Who do you think I am? Begone, sir. I'm doing the Fablemans.
Yeah.
Yes, Slasher Fred, he was originally, Kubrick was originally supposed to direct AI. I'm not going to get much more into that because if we talk about AI, that's going to be a whole side tangent. Dragon and I both have very, very complicated thoughts on that movie. Richard's Victims. Okay, the anti-American thing was a bit far, but John Wayne was correct. I was better than this. Oh, well. Ever heard of Oskar Schindler?
Oskar Schindler.
It's Oskar Schindler.
It's Oskar Schindler.
Oh my god.
Wouldn't it be okay? Tell me, wouldn't this be nice though if Schindler, let's say next time he wins an Oscar and just like as a special thing or a special achievement Oscar, let's just say it's special achievement Oscar. You have Liam Neeson presenting it to him.
Oh my god.
And he's just like walking as being all clever. It's that's right. It's Oskar Schindler giving Spielberg his special achievement Oscar. Very funny. Hearty har har.
That's just a comedian's response, though. Director compliments me. I'm going to bring up his most embarrassing movie.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's just Tim Allen really. He's having fun with Spielberg. They're just deflecting a compliment.
And honestly, Dragon, I mean, this movie is a train wreck, but I do think between the practical effects, the interest in history, I don't even think this is in my bottom 5. Honestly, a lot of my bottom 5 Spielberg movies are like, The Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls, Ready Player One.
Really? Is Kingdom of the Crystal Skull that low for you?
Yeah, it is, unfortunately. I mean,
I'm not like thinking about all of them like immediately, like, but I only know is like the Post is all the way down there.
The Post is down there for sure. Yeah,
I only know this and the Post are probably in the bottom 2, probably.
I mean, you know me, Lost World Jurassic Park is probably at the bottom for me, but that's a very personal bottom pick.
Anyway.
Okay, let's get into it. So yeah, this movie starts. Dragon, I swear to God, I can't even like the hubris that young Spielberg must have had to literally parody himself like 2 films into his career. Of course, this is technically 4 films with Sugarland and Duel, but like with the blockbusters, it's like it blows my mind. No modern filmmaker would do that on their like 2nd or 3rd movie.
Yeah. So remember that scene I told you I was hinting at the last time that there was one scene I knew about going into this movie. It was this opening scene for like the Jaws parody.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So this is the one scene I did know about, and I think here's the thing. I think it's funny, but when you realize when it sinks in, or in this case unsinks, so like raises to the surface, submarine gigs, folks. And no, but here's seriously this. when it sinks in that, yeah, you're absolutely right. That, yeah, it's a fun little parody joke. However, and it's a good opener. However, when you think that Spielberg's doing this instead of someone like this, this feels like a Zucker Brothers gag.
Oh, absolutely.
In
It's
their
so
heyday.
weird.
Like, this feels like something the Naked Gun directors do in their heyday, like a well-produced spoof gag like this. And they've done spoofs of Spielberg as well in the past. So this sort of thing. We have like the real Susan Baccalini, like the real girl from Jaws and everything doing this. So it's just the fact that like, you have a direct. It's a part of, like, I think the most cynical way of looking at it, but I think it's not far off from what you're saying. Is like it's kind of like a, ew, the director's parroting his own work one movie in between when he.
Well, I mean, it'd literally be like if Wes Anderson included like I'm sorry, not Wes Anderson. He's on the mind. It'd be like if Jordan Peele included like a very overt parody of Get Out, in the first 5 minutes of Nope, right? It'd be like that level of self-indulgence.
So, that's the thing. It's very self-indulgent, but it's like, here's the thing. Ultimately, it would be earned, but this early on, not earned. It's only like one movie in between.
He hasn't earned it.
Exactly. Yeah, you have like almost like an Animaniacs gag. You have like Tom Hanks just kind of wounded to the side, and it's like, I'm proud of the scene I just directed, and Tom Hanks in military garb, Bramley's like pulling by the scruff of his scruff. Of his shirt, like, you didn't earn it.
Oh my god.
Anyway, that's lunch, folks.
So, I mean, I honestly kind of feel like we can just like with the Japanese subplot, like subplot.
Okay, that's the thing. So yeah, we should talk about the lack of subs on the sub.
I feel like we should probably just I don't know, Dragon. There's not a lot to say about the Japanese characters in this movie other than the fact that they are like insanely racist and stereotypical.
Well, okay, so here,
Hollywood, come on.
Well, couple things to break down here. Okay, one. So the subtitle is a very weird thing in the release of this film. That it's since we're mentioning Schindler's List, it's like the only other time I run into something like this with a Spielberg movie was Schindler's List, where you have a couple of versions that get re-released over the years, and some movies so frequently. This movie not being a frequently re-released one, but still, it's the idea that sometimes Spielberg's movies will have inconsistencies upon their release. Like Schindler's List, depending on where you watch it, you may or may not have biopic text at the end of it, or the real life text at the end of that film, which baffles me how that happens. E.T. You have the guns. Have like the re-release with the guns taken in, put out, and some CG added in.
Which I am proud of Spielberg that he has like publicly denounced that. By the way.
Oh really? I didn't know he denounced it.
Oh yeah, he did.
I know he released.
He never should have done it. This was actually quite recently, like in the last year or so. He said he never should have done it.
What I remember was the whole People vs. George Lucas thing, where they showed when Spielberg released E.T., he gave you both versions. Anyway,
South Park had like the best parody of that whole thing, where it's like Spielberg like just starts doing that same thing to literally all his movies, to the point where it's like, coming soon, special edition of Saving Private Ryan, where all the guns have been replaced by walkie-talkies, and it's just like a bunch of soldiers like literally just running around like playing with walkie-talkies, like pretending they're guns. Anyways,
so. Let's see. Well, anyway, so interesting. So there's that, and of course the problem is the movie we watch, folks, apparently is like roughly, I forget if it was like 30 minutes or so shorter. I think it's like 30 minutes maybe. It's short. The theatrical version that we all watched, and basically the only one you can really find easily, I guess, or somewhat easily, is the theatrical version, not the director's cut, which I'm going to guess the director's cut may have subtitles or may not, or it's the way we saw it did not have subtitles, which makes a lot of the sub stuff just kind of a loss, because we had no idea what Christopher Lee in his German accent saying.
Okay, so I want to ask you that, like, that wasn't like an intentional director's choice then, right?
I mean, Tiki, here's the thing.
That's the only thing I can like possibly wrap my mind around why there's no subtitles.
That's the thing. My read on it is that, I mean, the fact that theatrically it's released without subtitles has to imply that, okay, it's the point that we don't need to know what they're saying. However, I saw some gag reel outtake stuff, and in that, like some deleted scenes. In those deleted scenes, they are subtitled. So my My logic is that there is an extended version. Whatever the extended version is, probably has subtitles in there, but I was not able to verify that firsthand. So
But
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
like, but you're right. Like, if anything else, we should have those subtitles for goddamn Christopher Lee. I mean, come on.
We should. I just
That is a waste of casting right there.
No, you're right about that, Tig. It's just the fact because of the Schindler's List thing on Amazon, like whatever version of it that had the text at the end makes me paranoid over, well, did it have text and we just didn't get it in the versions that we watched, or was it just intentionally not there?
Well, keep in mind, you and I watched it on 2 different platforms. So
that makes me think that we both either we both had the same version on 2 different platforms, or whatever version. That's just what it is. I mean,
we cross-checked. The version had the same runtime, so I'm pretty damn sure we had the same version.
It makes sense. I mean, it makes sense to me that Spielberg, at least for the version that we both had or whatever, that the choice was made not to have subtitles because for the Japanese sub, because it's the fact that we the audience don't know what the Japanese are playing. It's just kind of like a comedy of errors sort of thing.
Which I can honestly kind of understand that from the Japanese side of things. Again, like I can't understand that with Christopher Lee.
Yeah. That one, like, we should have given, like, especially in a comedy, you should have had, like, a German accent. We didn't need to put him in.
Right, yeah.
Would the Japanese even understand him with the German? That's the thing.
I don't think so. I don't know.
I know. I know they're not gonna. If they're not gonna understand each other anyway, like, why would he need to speak German? So, regardless, here's the thing. So the actor, now, as far as the whole, the racial thing is, the stereotype thing is, so Toshiro Mifune is apparently he's a really great Japanese actor who they got to play the leader of the Japanese submarine captain. So this guy was like as a professional, man. Like, this guy, there's this really famous story. He was on the set. He basically saw the other guys I guess as you'd call them SoCal actors. They were SoCal Japanese actors and Asian actors. And he whipped him. He literally whipped him in the shape. Like, he slapped him around. He says, like, this is how you act Japanese. So, I mean, I think it's more the writing, Tiki, but at least in the performance, at least on this guy in particular, I mean, I think he's giving it his all. But he's just
that guy for sure is giving it his all. I'm not going to discredit that for sure. I just think there's a lot of, let's just say, like, bucktooth accents, for lack of better phrasing, if you know what I mean.
Well, Tojo accents, I guess.
Right, yeah. Where it's. I don't even think that's like the most problematic part of the movie, but like it is still pretty uncomfortable. I don't know.
I gotta admit, just for the opening gag, but making it a runner throughout the film. Like we said, the opening gag of, like, okay, so they see the nude woman from Jaws almost in a meta-contextual way.
Right. Like, and they're literally yelling like Hollywood.
Okay, so that's kind of funny in terms of, like, if you're going to get one Hollywood, it's like, okay, like either Hollywood in the sense of, oh, that's the girl from Jaws, or Hollywood in the sense of, like, nude woman swimming in the water. We don't have that back home. We're in Hollywood.
That's honestly kind of how I read it at first. Was like,
if you notice, like,
he's such a weird thing for them to see that it's like, oh, we must be in Hollywood.
That's the thing, because I mean, the way I think it lends itself to that. The meta thing is just something when you realize that's the same girl, but it's the fact that, like, yeah, he's a little dazed after seeing her. So based on that, it's probably what you said. Okay, so let's see. So here, you know what my big moment was in this movie?
What?
The diner scene. Like, the moment that diner scene started, like, we're making some breakfast, making some eggs, but this scene's going on for a bit, and we're just pouring coffee on things and just, like, making like a bunch of, like, stuff spills on the grill. Like, this is not ha funny to me. This is just kind of like, hey, this kind of like half-hearted slapstick. And then we have the dialogue scenes, and, like, this dialogue's awfully clunky. I think we're in trouble here.
Yeah, I think this film has approximately one scene that is pretty flawless. Other than that, it's just riddled with holes.
Yeah, well, again, with all the bullets that are flying, yeah.
Of course.
But here's the thing. Dan, I want to give credit's due here. You have a lot of good people in this movie. Again, I don't think all of them give them the best material they could, but one guy was always shining through, though. Dan Aykroyd, Sergeant Tree.
Of course.
Yeah, of course, American. Again, this is like the heart of, like, the Zemeckis thing here. It's like Americans fighting Americans. I won't stand for like that. That's the Zemeckis. That's a Bob Gale Zemeckis line right there. That's great.
Right. which of course like literally the whole movie just kind of like devolves into like just a big version of that.
Yeah. So I mean, also it's kind of funny that this is kind of like a precursor to Dan Aykroyd as the sergeant. Well, one of the sergeants or commanders in Sergeant Bilko. You know, like the movie they made based on the show. It was kind of like it's like, hey, we saw him in that movie. Let's put him in this one. All right, so let's talk about Belushi.
Yeah, so Belushi is honestly one of the things that makes this feel like a Wes Anderson joint, and I say that specifically because he feels like the X Factor actor that Wes Anderson usually with every Wes Anderson movie, or at least a lot of them, there's always, of course you've got like the usual suspects, the Owen Wilsons, the Bill Murrays, the Jason Schwartzmans, Jeff Goldblum, Dafoe, etc. You've got the usual suspects. But a lot of times, more often than not, there will be one specific person who's usually kind of at the center of the movie, who is like someone who's new to this sort of Wes Anderson troupe. So a few examples here: we have Richard Gere in The Royal Tenenbaums. We have honestly, Edward Norton started out like that with Moonrise Kingdom, but Norton kind of became a Wes Anderson staple after that. But I think Ralph Fiennes actually is a good example for Budapest Hotel. And then most recently, of course, Tom Hanks in Asteroid City. So, it very much feels like that sort of like, okay, like this is the big Hollywood star that we need to kind of focus the movie around almost.
Yeah, so what happened was Belushi, when he was on the table there. So basically, Belushi was supposed to be in the third act of the movie, but then Spielberg realized, okay, we have Belushi in here. We got to put more scenes. We got to get more scenes. Just kind of dawn. That's why he's like worked throughout the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So his introduction scene, by the way, connects to this. I was alluded to in the comments. We bring in the snake lady from the gas station. She's
yep.
So the lady who had like the roadside snake stand, she's the gas station attendant here. We're literally at the gas station from Duel, by the way.
It's trippy. It really is.
Yeah. Or especially since you really liked her too. My snakes!
My snakes! Why did you do that to my snakes?
Fill her up, Ethel. Where? So it's Wild Bill Kelso. So it's Belushi having a good time. Him playing like a deranged version of Snoopy.
He's essentially just playing Bluto again. I mean, that's pretty much how he's playing the character.
Well, more vocal Bluto, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, Bluto talked. I'm just saying, like Bluto was a man of few words. Like I forget if it was like he only had like 50 words or not, but it was like still. But yeah, so we had like him doing shenanigans. That was the thing. Spielberg's let him improvise a lot for this stuff, like him breaking the Coke over the side, and then like the tomato soup, like that. That was just Belushi on the day. Yeah. Anyway, so again, they're just kind of building him up, just given the fact he's going to have like a big pivotal like set piece with the plane crash.
And honestly, like the way we're going through this kind of calls to mind for me, one of the big cardinal sins of this movie is that it's just got way too many plot lines and it does not know how to balance them.
I mean, they vaguely tie into each other in the third act, but even so, it's a long way getting there.
It is, yeah. So, I mean, with that in mind, we've got like and Dragon, I'm terribly sorry. I'm going to be shit with names when it comes to this movie. I really am, because there's so many characters. But the diner kid.
Yeah, so Bobby, here's the thing. I know most of the actors' names, but that's Wally. Wally's the diner kid. Wally's the kid who's in the zoot suit. That's Wally. So Wally, played by Bobby, I keep wanting to say DeChico because I'm thinking of that scene from Coneheads, but Bobby DeCio, or maybe it's DeChico. Bobby DeCio plays him. He's from Zemeckis' old movie. I Want to Hold Your Hand, like one of the early days of Zemeckis films. So basically, yeah, he's this kid just wants to dance with his girl. His girl, Lorraine Gray from Jaws. That's the wife from Jaws.
Yeah. Honestly, one of the lines that actually got a laugh out of me is like I do enjoy the dynamic between the army guys and this guy with, them being offended by his wardrobe. So like the whole line of like, you got a real wardrobe problem, pal. Like, I don't know, I just like the runner of him just showing up in like, increasingly elaborate suits.
Yeah. I gotta tell you, man, I had no idea that the zoot suit was that offensive back then. I had no idea there was like a gang affiliation with the zoot suit. I just thought it was cool looking.
I vaguely know about it. I don't know too much about it.
Well, just every time I think of a zoot suit, I'm just thinking of the mask. Mask is like the yellow zoot suit.
Right,
I never
exactly,
associate
exactly.
any
Yeah.
bad, like, so that's the thing. So apparently in the research, there was like a zoot suit riot over the whole, apparently it was like this Hispanic kind of Latino gang thing.
Hmm.
Anyway, so yeah, it's also here's the thing that kind of bugged me. Wendy Jo Sperber, so she is Marty McFly's sister in Back to the Future. But she unfortunately passed away like shortly after Back to the Future films, I believe. But Wendy Jo Sperber, she she plays like the friend in this film, who's just like a really mean girl, just wants to get this poor kid shot.
Oh man, this might be the worst character in the movie for me.
Right?
I mean, obviously, all due respect to her for passing, as early as
Yeah.
she did, but like, oh god, just the whole runner of like Slim, Slim. That's the girl you're talking about, right?
Yeah, that's her. Like she wants the bully of the movie. Yeah.
Oh my god, that running gag. I mean, first of all, I feel like the weird thing about the that whole gag, like her wanting the bully, and then the bully very aggressively going after the love interest.
Yeah, very aggressive.
Very aggressively, uncomfortably aggressively, even for a sex comedy. But yeah, it is cringe. It is a very, very cringe plot line, just in general.
Yeah, that's the other thing too with the sex comedy aspects. We're in a very interesting point in time here because we're in the '70s. It came out in '79. Okay, we're at the tail end of the '70s. Now you gotta remember, early '80s, early to mid '80s, like Private Resort, for example, that came out in '85. Like there's your kind of like your barometer for like one of like that, and probably something like I'm trying to remember the basis for She's the Man. I don't know. I guess there's like I think one of them's like private school. They have like a whole bunch of like they use private a lot. As you can probably guess. Like sorry, Porky's is. I'm sorry. Let me give you the really good example. Porky's. Porky's is like the definitive sex comedy. The screwball, the screwball sex comedy from the '80s. So '80s is when you're like fully in it. And we're in the '70s, and the '70s is like kind of more of the sanitized version of the sex comedy,
which makes the sex comedy so fucking awkward.
Yeah, which I can't remember when Hollywood Nights came out. Hollywood Nights either came out, I think it was in the '80s, but there's a chance it was like one of the like probably the closest thing to a raunchy sex comedy they had in the '70s, if it did come out in the '70s, which I don't even think it did. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. We're in kind of like all over the place. We're having innuendo for sure. We even call out the innuendo by name, pretty much. With Nancy Allen's character, Nancy Allen from RoboCop, by the way.
I'm just gonna say it. I cannot stand the sexual innuendo dialogue.
Well, neither could she. So
it's so cringe. It is so cringe.
Yeah,
and that might just be me being an asexual, just kind of coming out. I might be like, like more bothered by that than someone who's not in my position would be, but I don't know.
Either or, I think it's less that too. I think it's more just like you can get a sense Spielberg's a little uncomfortable with it too. And I think that's the thing. Like for example, like in The Color Purple, there was like this is obviously not a sex comedy, but in The Color Purple, there was a scene that was very sexually.
I'm sorry, Dragon. Let's get that down for the record really quick, just to be sure. So you're saying The Color Purple is not a sex comedy?
Pretty much, yeah.
That's just a funny thing to have to clarify. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So The Color Purple, there's this scene that's very sexually charged. It's from the book, and that he didn't have. He always says he didn't have the stomach for, but he regrets like not going that far because he felt everyone was like talking about the whole like we would have had like a very LGBT kind of moment in that film. We didn't do it,
which I'm sure we're going to get in the musical.
Yeah. So assuming it comes out this year on time, which I think it still is. I think it's like a beta.
I'm pretty sure it's locked into the Christmas release date.
Okay. Anyway, so yeah, Spielberg was green during that. Even that was like years later, and that was in a drama. So I don't. I know this is more than the comedy. It just feels like he's like bridging the territory already. That he's like, Spielberg like has done funny moments and funny gags, but he's never done like a full on comedy before. This is the first
Yeah,
time.
and Richard's victim actually asked that question, and the answer is definitely no. He has not done. This is his only. I mean, obviously, every Spielberg movie, like even Oscar Schindler's movie, has a tiny bit of comedy in it. It's like
Indiana
every
Jones
Spielberg movie has a little bit of comedy, but
like Indiana Jones has a bunch of gags in it. So
of course, yeah. I would Indiana Jones, honestly, like if that movie, if Indiana Jones were nominated for like, if I had to pick between drama and comedy / musical to nominate it for a Golden Globe, I'd probably pick the comedy / musical, honestly.
Right.
But
so the point being, like you can tell he's very green with this sort of stuff, and it's like things like, okay, I'm just going to throw a lot of innuendo at it. I'm not going to go the full sex comedy thing, which we probably would have nudity, and so we're not going that far with it. Well, the closest he did get to was the opening of the movie. There's your
the opening of the movie does have some pretty graphic nudity. I mean, we don't linger on it, but
not graphic nudity, but yes, there is nudity. Yeah.
Well, I'm saying you see pretty much everything.
Well, I mean, no, it's good. I don't want to get into the whole like censorship semantics.
All right.
I'm just saying historically, there's like you can show two things, but there's one thing particularly you really can't show.
Fair enough.
We don't see that.
Okay.
I only mentioned because I years ago I saw that censorship documentary. Oh, that's how it works.
So that MPAA movie that came out, is that the one you're talking about?
Well, there was something before that.
This film is not yet rated.
This film, no, I know what you're talking about. I've seen that, but I'm saying there's something like before that too, where I think that was like fully like laid out the groundwork for it. And I think it's come up like in two other documentaries since I saw it somewhere. I can't remember way back when, but
Richard's victims. American Pie was. I feel like American Pie very much brought back the idea of the sex comedy.
Yeah,
and then that led to stuff like It's Something About Mary, and then that led into like the the Apatow movies, the early Apatow movies that were actually funny. Yeah. But in the 80s, yeah, there was very much like I think Animal House was honestly probably one of the genesis points for it, even though that movie's not necessarily like a wild sex comedy. It's got some sexual bits to it.
You got Animal House, you got Porky's, you got Private Resort, you got
Revenge of the Nerds.
I think there's one called Private School, and there's whatever that. I don't know. Well, let's just go with those. All right.
Right. With Oscar Schindler, there's that funny scene where the titular Schindler is looking for secretaries. Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Yeah, that was a really good scene too. I think didn't he end up with like just like the homely looking lady?
I think so. Yeah,
it was even better.
Okay, let's see. Also, Slasher Fred points out Belushi and Aykroyd would reunite in the classic comedy The Blues Brothers a year later.
Very true.
Was that a Spielberg produced?
I mean, I wonder if Spielberg, because Landis was directing, I wonder if maybe that was Spielberg.
Kind of like another sort of like it's in Spielberg's orbit sort of thing.
Yeah, it's a thing. So it's in the orbit.
Don't forget Color Purple. Wait, no, damn it. God.
Plus you got Carrie Fisher.
Everyone's favorite sex comedy. God.
Right. Carrie Fisher's in the Blues Brothers, so at least you have Lucas kind of maybe tangentially involved. To some degree. I mean, it's like the American Graffiti kind of effect,
Oh, actually, Dragon, I'm glad you bring up American Graffiti because honestly, and I'm not sure if there's any sort of like validity to this. I watched I don't know if you and I watched the same documentary. It seems like we might have. I watched one on YouTube that was like an hour, 40 minutes long. I didn't hear anything about this, but I feel like the structure of this movie, both in the fact that like it's taking place over the course of one day and it's jumping around to a lot of different plot lines, very much feels like Spielberg's trying to do American Graffiti, right? Am I off base on that?
I don't think you're off base on it, but it does feel like his friendship with George Lucas, like George got his after the whole THX he they tested him out on American Graffiti. It was like a challenge to do a comedy in which he did that. So perhaps in some ways, like Spielberg, like I'm going to challenge myself to do a comedy on some level.
It did not work out nearly as well for poor Steven.
Nope.
The trade-off is that he has a much more robust filmography than George does.
Yeah, there you go, man. That's the thing. If it's almost like a Faustian deal, like George Lucas, I will give you all the success you can handle. I won't say for how long. I'll give you all the success you can handle for if in exchange for you making a teen comedy.
Mm-hmm.
On the flip side, Spielberg, I will give you all the success you can handle, but you have to make 1941.
You have to make a bad comedy.
Yeah, yes, I have to make a comedy. It doesn't have to be good or bad, but you have to make a comedy. In exchange, I will give you success till the end of time.
All right. Okay, so let's see. What other plot line should we jump around to? There's only about 5 more that we need to get to.
Okay, let's see. So the riot at the USO Club again. This feels like this is Spielberg feeling his oats, and they want to do a big old fight scene. It's again. It's
So I actually think the dance is like a pretty perfect sequence as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. I really think it builds well. I mean, of course, the one thing that I don't like about it is the whole running thing of like stretch. I mean, just cut all that shit out. That shit is so obnoxious. But I'm just saying, like, I really like the whole, like, it feels like, like a one scene arc for Wally where he goes from like, like the loser to the hero over the course of one dance sequence. I really like how that evolves.
Well, yeah, Spielberg had a regret. Sorry, real quick. Richard's Victims says, I would like Spielberg to try to do a full-blown comedy again, though, to be honest. Now, here's the thing. In making this movie, Spielberg did have a regret that, he didn't do a musical sequence, and he just ended up doing, like, just the dance sequence, which, it turned out good, but still, he kind of wanted to do that. Of course, years later, he would do West Side Story.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So it's the fact that he kind of the bridge getting there was like the musical opening of Temple of Doom, which is Anything Goes, which I forget if that's technically in this movie or if it's in the extended version or just didn't make the cut period. But Anything Goes was kind of like a thing that was in his head.
So it was in his head because that was basically his like mantra while making the movie.
Sure, yeah. No, you're right though. It was. So that's the thing. So the fact is he's been kind of circling around these things. So the fact that years later he ends up actually getting to do like the things in the back.
Then what's funny is that I feel like the West Side Story, like I feel like I'm not sure how much basis this has, but like the Zoot Suit riots kind of feel similar to the racial tension that's present in West Side Story a little bit, right?
I mean, yeah, more in real life than this movie, but yeah.
That's
what I'm saying. This movie's based on that, but I'm
I'm not saying in this movie, Dragon, nothing in this movie feels like it's based in real life.
But yeah, like the real life basis of the whole, like these guys fought over like the literally almost like the Sneetches from that Dr. Seuss book.
God.
It's like we don't like what you're wearing, or you don't like the stars on your like we don't like we like the color of your suits.
All right. Little Blue appeared in the comments, and he says, "Isn't Hook also considered a Spielberg disappointment?" Little Blue, yeah, Richard's Victims. He kind of speaks for like Hook to the right generation who grew up with that movie is like a very beloved movie. But yeah, I don't necessarily think that Hook is a very interesting kind of movie. It's like I don't there's nobody who really loves 1941 in the same way like a whole generation of people love Hook. But Hook is not great, critically speaking.
Well, additionally, though, it's just the fact that Spielberg, the other movie he's embarrassed by, or at least has like a little not resentment in a negative, like an aggressive way, but kind of like a doubt in his abilities. Hook was the other black sheep for Spielberg. Hook was the one where he feels every time he's asked about Hook, he says, "I know a lot of people like that movie. It's kind of hard for me to watch." And he will hope someday he'll be able to go back to it and have nicer things to say about it. So he's really I think he's really down himself about how Hook turned out, and I think that it shows in places.
Zuko is in Hook, you evil people. I feel like that is probably like the thing that people take away from Hook nowadays.
Yeah, that is like that's the reason. No one can fully discount Hook. No one can fully, because you got Rufio in it. You got Rufio in it. And I think it's got some redeeming values. It's got the first act of Hook, the premise of Hook is great.
Bob Hoskins makes a mean Smee, man. He makes a really great Smee.
Yeah, great premise. You got Smee, and for my money, I know no one else is going to praise it, but darn it, I will. I love that scene with Dustin Hoffman where he has like the last scene he has in the movie where he's like, "What would the world be without Captain Hook?" It's like, oh, he says it with such. I love the way he says that line. Anyway, okay, let's see. So
kind of similar to the South Park thing. Whenever I think of Hook, I think of like the Family Guy gag where Tom Tucker's like quote unquote interviewing Dustin Hoffman. Bring me Peter Pan. I'll keep my eye out for him. Thank you, Dustin.
Yeah. So let's talk about one of the actually really good parts of this movie. General Stillwell, man. General Stillwell was great.
He is, yeah.
Robert Stack playing General Stillwell, who actually apparently in real life looked like the guy, which is handy. So this is the role John Wayne was supposed to play, as mentioned. So I have to wonder if it makes me feel like I have this feeling that John Wayne. I like to think he liked the General Stillwell stuff. He just didn't care for the rest of the movie.
I think that's true. And honestly, I honestly feel like if John Wayne would have actually like been signed up for this movie, Dragon, I have a feeling he would have been like a late career Orson Welles level diva. Like I really think Spielberg dodged a bullet by not casting him.
Yeah, it's entirely possible. Yeah, that's the thing. So I love it. He seems to be the best and authentic performance in this movie because he feels like the real guy. I love that in real life, and this real life bull, that he did in fact see Dumbo that day. So it's the fact that this man is so moved by Dumbo, which again, Dumbo was like that around that wartime release. It came out not the same day as
Pearl Harbor. Oh yeah, for sure. It came out right around Pearl Harbor. This is a very accurate. Like it definitely would have been in theaters at this time.
And General Stillwell actually saw it in real life. So I don't know if he was this.
You know what would have been a funny gag though?
What?
Is if we saw just picture the movie cutting to Baby Mine and we just see like all the GIs just like comedically crying over that scene.
Well, we did do that, Tiki, with him.
What?
We did do that with him in the movie, though.
Did I miss that?
Yeah, it's this great moment where they literally have the baby. Literally, the scene is playing in the movie, and we see the general crying at it.
Okay, I think why I missed that, like, yeah, you're right, it is in there, but, like, again, for me, I feel like you could have, like, emphasized the comedy of, like, the tough, like, not just the general, like, I feel like the general crying at that is actually meant to be, like, a really nice moment, but I'm saying, like, you could have milked the comedy in that moment, not necessarily from the general, but maybe from some of the other people who were in the theater with him.
Basically, you want him to go the full Ted Lasso on that one.
Well, I have not watched Ted Lasso.
I know. Let's just say I won't say what the movie is. There's a movie. They have a movie night in one of the episodes of Ted Lasso, and they have all these tough football players crying their eyes out at
that's basically what I want. Yeah,
at a certain animated movie, and it's very priceless.
Oh my god. Okay, now I'm just reminded of the genius that is the Rain Man scene in Barry.
That's us.
That's us. That's seriously one of the fucking funniest moments in that whole show for me.
Yeah, I've had that same reaction watching Breaking Bad. I'm like looking at it like, that's us.
All right.
So anyway, so that's it. Also, like some funny setups too. Like one of the actually good gags in the movies, we promise not to drop the bomb. The bomb will not drop, and of course, behind him, like the bomb actually drops and rolls into the press. Like, oh god!
Right.
That's great. All right. So also, we should talk about the great Ned Beatty.
Yeah. Who coincidentally enough actually pops up in Asteroid City.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice. That must be his last role then in Asteroid City.
Must be, yeah.
You sure it was Ned Beatty in that movie, right?
No, I'm not.
Okay, well now
let me look it up. I know it's a Beatty.
Was it Warren Beatty?
Isn't he the older Beatty?
Well, one's dead, one's older, Tiki, so it's kind of hard to...
Okay, hold on. I'm sorry. Now I'm, like, totally second-guessing myself. Asteroid City's a big cast, okay? He doesn't have that big of a role.
Oh, I'm sorry, mister. I know Wes Anderson like the back of my hand.
I've only seen it once. I really want to see it a second time.
Sure. Yeah, I believe
Oh God, let's see.
you weren't falling asleep in the movie at all.
Oh no, I'm sorry. It's totally not. It's totally someone else. I'm sorry.
Is it even a Beatty?
No,
Okay. Anyway, so
I'm just
yes.
dumb.
Point being, Ned Beatty is great, and he's good. He's good Ward as Ward Douglas here.
Mhm.
So it's this absurd true to life event about the anti-aircraft gun in his yard, and it's just the idea is like he's a patriot in over his head during a very pivotal event in the film.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the Ferris wheel?
Yeah. Let's have the Ferris wheel. Yeah.
Okay, featuring one of our long-time people, Dragon.
Now this pays off. You know how this pays off.
We're not always a fan of this guy, but I gotta tell you, I genuinely think that that Eddie Dietz has the biggest laughs in the movie for me.
Really?
For me, I think he was the funniest part of the movie for me, hands down. I don't know. I honestly think his style, which can be very grating, and here's the thing, Dragon. I kind of feel like with his style, it's almost better suited for live action comedy, just because like the guy has the build for that voice, and the voice is just so distinct. And like when you hear the voice pop up in animation, like Polar Express, for example, that's the one I always go to.
Again, is the connective tissue because Robert Zemeckis.
Of course, but it's very out of place, though. It's very out of place in Polar Express. Like there are a lot of times where that guy's voice pops up, and it just feels like, okay, like wow, very very distinct voice right there. All right. But I don't know. I laughed a lot at his physical comedy. I love the dummy. I'm not sure how you feel about the dummy. I love the dummy.
So it's funny. The dummy actually had more scenes. The dummy had like a built mechanism where he like shoot milk and stuff out of his nose.
I love the dummy just because of how random it is. Like it totally just comes out of left field.
It's really funny. Apparently, when they shot that Eddie Dietz doing this thing, the actor like told Spielberg, "Son, I'm not going to have to act with this boy." The idea that he was like actors getting legitimately annoyed by Eddie Dietz.
All right, Richard's Victims is very much on a hook tangent right now, to the point where he changed his avatar, Dragon.
Yeah.
He changed it to the hook poster.
Yep.
No more chin.
Yep. It'd be funnier if you changed it to Bruce Campbell, but
Oh my God.
Anyway, but yeah, so I think look, Eddie Dietz, I like him. Obviously, I love him as Mandark, and you're right though. I think he does for the role that he's playing here. I think he is playing it perfectly, but still, it's like, man, we have a really annoying character in this movie. In a movie, it's already kind of
that's the point, though. He's supposed to be very annoying, and I think he kills it at that.
Yeah. So in that respect,
I don't know, just the whole like, and it's going. I don't know. There's something about like I said, I feel like the best way I can put it is like most of the other stuff in the movie, when I am laughing at the movie. But with his scenes, I am laughing with the movie, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And of course, the Ferris wheel is the best set piece in the movie.
It's the fact that, so again, the idea that I think it really sells here is the idea that they're going to shoot the Japanese sub's going to shoot at this amusement park, thinking that it's Hollywood.
Right.
And in doing so, like they hit the Ferris wheel, it's going to roll off the pier, which is already, it feels very Big Wheel from Spider-Man. That's just like the moving, it's the moving Ferris wheel.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And but yeah, that's it's a great broad comedy set piece that fits in the whole miscommunication, like misidentification from the real life stuff. So that's really fun.
I also just love the setup of like army people using a Ferris wheel as a lookout tower.
Yeah,
I don't know. That just there's something very comfortable in that.
No, I agree with you. Yeah, so you like almost like as if they're on like a date or something.
Right, and then of course you've got like the whole thing of like the one guy is very just a very very like serious person who is also afraid of heights, and then Eddie Dietz is just very much not serious and like full on like, we don't need a safety bar.
God. Yeah.
I don't know. I really enjoy that part of the
Well,
movie.
I'm glad
I really do.
I'm glad you enjoyed him. So let's talk. So speaking a little bit about Hollywood, let's talk about Holliswood.
Okay. This guy is another very. I think he's probably the second best plot line in the movie after Eddie Dietz for me. Some of his lines do like. I feel like with this guy, it's less so like his lines are actually really good, but it's more so he's delivering them in a genuinely kind of funny way.
So I was I think. I wonder if I'm looking at something right here. I'm looking at Richard Victim's If I'm not mistaken, I think that's it's the Hook poster instead of Robin Williams. It's Bruce Campbell.
No.
No, bottom one. Most recent one taken.
Oh no. Oh, you're right. Oh my god. Oh, Jesus Christ.
I was saying just fully Bruce Campbell. But still.
Oh man.
Okay.
You bring in the appreciation for the hook and the chin.
Yeah, there you go. When you say the chin, that can only be one man.
Oh man.
Bruce Campbell. Anyway, so yeah, here's the thing about Holliswood. So Holliswood, I think it starts off really strong. It's the idea that you have this this Abbott and Costello routine where it's just like, Hollywood, like Hollywood, where's Hollywood? We always more say like, where's Hollywood? It's just like here. It says, where's Hollywood? Like right here. You can't understand English right here. So all of that's working for me. Like that's gangbusters. That's great. Here's where it loses me. The moment the prune juice comes out.
Yeah.
See, it's not even so much that's a bathroom joke. It's that the reason for the bathroom humor doesn't make a lot of sense. Like,
no, I agree. I honestly had a hard time even following it.
Look, the prize in the Cracker Jack box initially is funny, but the fact that, guys, I mean, you're a military of some sort. You don't know what a compass is? Like, really?
Right.
And, you don't have a compass? I mean, you just need to know where north. How do you know where north and south is?
I actually don't think it's possible to operate a submarine without a compass. I don't know. I could be wrong about that.
It just feels like a long way to go with the whole, for the compass gag. So that's what throws me off about it. It's like, I mean, look again. Plus, like, do you buy this dumpy old guy is going to take out all these young Japanese troops?
Not really,
right? Anyway, let's see. So, again, Captain Burkhead, we already kind of mentioned. It's Tim Matheson, who's literally from Animal House. He's trying to get lucky with Nancy Ellen. Don't we all wish we could? And he's trying to he's trying to like she has like this mile high kink, and that leads to the whole like he's going to get her in the plane even though he has no idea how to fly a plane. Which you got him is somewhat kind of funny. It's the idea, I'm going to get her up in the plane. I have no idea how to fly though.
So here's the thing: I do think it is a funny premise, like in concept, but and I do think like it does lead to obviously like probably like the Ferris wheel is like the best set piece, but I think the plane chase is the biggest set piece.
Yeah,
and so it's a pivotal part of the movie. I think my problem with it is that it just very, very heavily leans into the cheap innuendo humor. Like, that's pretty much the only real writing trick that they have up their sleeve with the comedy in that subplot.
Yeah.
This whole, like, we're off the ground, but you're not.
Yeah, that's not. You're right. It's a cringe.
And also, like, does this woman just go and, like what she expect? Is she really expecting them to just, like have romantic relationships while
well, they did. Remember, they did in the movie after that gag. Then, he's steering the thing with her brassiere, so he's
I don't buy that. I mean, I know it's a screwball comedy, of course, but
well, it's like it was gonna be a weird. I'm sure people are gonna scoff at this, but I'm thinking like Lego Batman right now. Lego Batman, he's using like the rope to steer the Batman. I know it's a movie with Legos, but I think it's actually a pilot trick that technically, if you tie like a rope, you can do like an auto, like a kind of a makeshift autopilot. So look, I'm not trying to argue like authentic, like reality in this 1941 comedy, but Anyway.
Richard's victim says, let's see, a military failing an invasion because they didn't know how to read a compass and accidentally attacked the wrong location. Honestly, that would be a great joke for a movie like this.
Yeah, would be. Let's see. So overall, the production value again, just it's destruction on a Blues Brothers scale, which is what more could you ask for? I mean, that's how you do it, though. You got to give Spielberg credit where credit.
I mean, once we get into the third act, beyond one very, very problematic gag that we'll have to bring up. Well, a couple. I mean, there's the gag that's basically just it's sexual assault, kids. Which, Dragon, I'm not going to lie, that is to me, that is the most uncomfortable part of the whole movie for me.
Hey, you have to refresh my memory a little bit on that one. I don't recall what.
Just the army guy just being super aggressive, man. I mean, he is just like.
Oh, you just mean in general, or main, you mean way earlier in the movie though, when he's
No, I mean when he's chasing her through the town, like grabbing her, like you're mine. It's the end of the line, doll. Like he is being
Yeah.
He is being incredibly predatory, Dragon.
Yeah, you're right.
And I honestly think the gag is supposed to be that, the Slim or not. I'm sorry, not Slim. What's his name? Sorry,
Wally.
No, the
name. The bully's name is Slim.
Okay, Slim. I want to make sure I got that right.
The bully's name is Slim. Wendy Jo Sperber is the mean girlfriend who likes Slim. So that's
so basically, I think that the whole thing with like she is basically trying to push herself onto him unwillingly, and it's supposed to be like a comedy of errors in that regard. But man, in the modern context, it is super uncomfortable. I mean, I'm saying it genuinely feels like if some of that stuff, when they're out on the town and he's just chasing her and pinning her down, Dragon, that would be a horror movie these days. It really would be. And then also there's the blackface and and flower gag that we're gonna have to cover because that shit happens in the last 15 minutes of the movie, and I had heard about that shit. But Dragon, I was hoping that shit was just in the director's cut and it wasn't going to pop up in the theatrical cut. And I was actually really liking the last act of this movie. I was really okay, things are kind of coming together. The production values are really impressive. But Dragon, then they just outright throw in the most problematic gag in the whole movie.
Yeah, you mean the blackface, whiteface thing?
Yes.
Yeah, that's it's funny. Did you recognize Did you recognize our actors in those scenes?
I can't say I do.
Yeah, so we have Frank McRae. Frank McRae was in Last Action Hero. I mean, he pops up in other places, but he was the parody of the police chief in Last Action Hero. Remember, he was the guy with little steam coming out of his ears.
Uh-huh.
And John Candy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a great.
I should have recognized John Candy. I don't know why I didn't.
I still can't wait for Ryan Reynolds' documentary on John Candy to come out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking. He loves John Candy. So, it'd be really funny if there's a sequence in that documentary called "I Want Candy."
Oh my god! You know what I always remember John Candy for?
What?
Rescuers Down Under.
Ah.
Yeah. That's the big one for me.
Yeah, I think for me it's probably. It might be Vacation. That might be one of the good.
That's fair.
Anyway,
but you know what I'm saying though? Genuinely, I think the third act of this movie is really solid for the most part.
Yeah.
You got Wild Bill. I think Belushi is really giving it his all with the physical comedy and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But then we have just the worst joke in the movie from a modern day context, just slapped into the last 15 fucking minutes. It's a little frustrating.
Yeah. I mean, look, with the blackface whiteface thing. I mean, there were like gags that they cut from this movie that are a lot more offensive. Like there was going to be a thing is most of them based in real life. By the way, is the fact that there was like an actual thing where they had like a comparison poster so you could recognize it was a propaganda sort of thing where it's like the Chinese are our friend and they look like this. They're tall and dashing. You have the Japanese who are short and Tojo like, and they are not our friends. Make sure you know the difference
Oh
between
my
like a
god.
poster. And then
Yeah.
Spielberg said, no, we can't put that in the movie. Like, come on, guys. I know it's real. We can't put that in there. So knowing that kind of makes it. Well, I mean, it's one gag. And it's very clearly it's not.
I don't even. Let me be clear here. I don't even think the gag itself is all that bad in terms of like, I like the fact that the black guy is actually laughing at it. Like that makes it a little better. I'm just saying it's embarrassing. I truly felt the secondhand embarrassment for Spielberg in that moment.
Yep.
It's basically like if an unflattering Halloween costume picture of you surfaced. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. So let's see. So but yeah, I mean you're right. It's the fact that Kelso's coming in there saying like the subs coming, then we have like everyone rallying together. Like again, a very destructive scene throughout that poor house. We have the Ward Douglas character, like he's trying to blast the sub, and ultimately the sub just gets scared off, and then we kind of like almost justifiably because we have a very again kind of reflecting back on the propaganda then it's like we have a very anti-Japanese Kelso who ends up going stuck with them on a subs as well. I guess we go to Tokyo. Well, it's kind of justified.
By the way, I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but like I would think in the real World War II, if like an American like just tried to hijack a submarine, like Dragon, this dude would be shot dead so fast. They're not giving him a ride to Tokyo. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's the thing. We don't see him after that scene. Off screen, we don't know.
It's a bit of a weird last beat for Belushi's character, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like the things that work. There's the fact that Aykroyd's taken out of commission, so it lands to the kid who was his whole shtick. I know we barely touched on this because there's not really much to touch on. Wally, the whole costume thing running with him is that Wally is not in the service, but to get into the club to dance with this girl, he has to dress like he steals the uniform off a serviceman, and he so the fact that he's actually in the position of making a difference and helping out. Of course, he's helping out a pointless endeavor. He's all like just eventually with the sub, he actually is helping with these guys trying to bomb Hollywood. So and they're far off.
Just the whole like blowing out all the lights by shooting at the lights.
Yeah.
But again, production wise, I think there's a lot of impressive shit in this last act. I really do. The plane chase, for example, Dragon. Do you know if that was done like kind of like the same way that they did the Star Wars stuff?
Well, I mean,
models.
Remember, the way the Star Wars, they used footage for Star Wars for like the previs. They used like actual World War II.
Well, no, I'm saying how they actually like filmed the planes in this movie.
You mean do they use models when they shot the plane?
Yeah.
I mean, Tiki, if you look at it, the effect, clearly we don't have CG to work with. Now, in terms of like green screening it, I mean, we're in 79. The most we would have at this point is rear projection, which is like what we did in Superman in the same exact year. And that was practically refined for that movie. So it's the same year it came out. So I doubt they would have access to that. So I'm thinking it's probably models. They're probably like doing an effect on models. I think smart money would back that up. But yeah, it's an impressive scene, and again, it's the whole miscommunication. The idea here is that we're under like an air raid. Everyone's looking to the skies, and they're shooting aimlessly and firing, which is all from real life. Only I like how we've tied our events in from the real life stuff. Which so it's a cause and effect sort of thing. Where so we have this plane flying through the sky, but it's not labeled, so like we're not seeing like he has no radio or anything. Like, there's no radio. Son, you can't contact it. You can't call anyone. There's no radio on that thing.
That also kind of felt like an Abbott and Costello bit.
Yeah, that worked too for me. Yeah, but yeah. So you have this sequence there. So the fact is, like we're we're flying in darkness. We have like just basically the riot jump gets everyone on the streets. When everyone's on the streets, then we have like the air raid miscommunication, and we have the planes coming down from the earlier plot line. We have like the sub has no idea where it's going. So everything's, I think, kind of tying together nicely in the third act to collide and cross over. But again, it took a long time getting there, and those plot lines are still very disconnected.
Yeah, that's the main problem with the third act, is the fact that
none of these people know
too many characters.
Like none of these people know each other.
Right, yeah. But I mean, there is like the paint factory dragon. That is a fucking inspired set piece.
It looked it was my favorite, like in terms of like setting wise, everything. I do love us destroying all the paint in the paint factory.
And that is kind of like the main like visual of the movie that kind of gave me a Wes Anderson vibe a little bit.
Sure.
And then I do like the comedy of like the woman's house being taken over and the whole like open that door and just the tank just driving completely through the house.
Yeah.
Also, really quick, I want to geek out about Pacific Ocean Amusement Park for just a second.
Yeah, I was wondering when you were going to get to that.
Yeah. So you remember it was my pick for on the defunct land debate that we did all those years ago. It feels like I picked this place as the as what I would like to see Kevin Perger do a defunct land documentary on. And I don't know, Drag, I still stand by that. And I think it's really interesting. Now, I do want to make a distinction, though. Pacific Ocean Amusement Park, not the same thing as Pacific Ocean Park, but it's the same location. It's just Pacific Ocean Amusement Park was in the 40s. I believe they closed down probably during the 50s, and then Pacific Ocean Park was made by NBC as a direct competitor to Disney back in I believe that opened in 58, I want to say, 57 or 58. So again, it's on the same pier, just the Pacific Park that I'm really interested in with all the weird King Trident dark rides and stuff like that. That was Pacific Ocean Park, and that opened as a response to Disney. But again, same location, so really interesting to get that history in there, from an amusement park point of view. All right.
Yeah. All right, let's see. So I think we already mentioned the Fableman's Knob with the train earlier on. So we should probably talk about our cameos real quick. A few kind of notable cameos.
Yeah, one really notable cameo for us that I did not even notice until the fucking credits.
Yeah, tell them about it.
Well, it's McKean, but I literally don't even know where he is, Dragon. I just saw him pop up in the credits. So
it's Michael McKean and David Landers. So they had a little bit of a Laverne and Shirley love fest because you have Penny Marshall along with let's see, I think it's Penny Marshall and I forget if Joe. I think it's her and Joe Flaherty in that scene. You remember Joe Flaherty, don't you?
I can't say I do.
Joe Flaherty in Back to the Future 2, he's the Western Union guy. He says, "I have something for you, a letter." We had a bet going on. Yeah, that. Well, anyways, point being, McKean and David Landers, I think they bear witness to the plane or something going overhead. There was two soldiers that are witnessing some of the craziness going on.
Oh.
But yeah, so Michael McKean, our boy, Chuck.
Yeah. So that's cool.
Also, James Caan has an uncredited thing. You're one of the many sailors in that scene. So, it's kind of... John Belushi wanted to play another character, so he plays like a Vito Corleone looking guy in the restaurant when it kind of crashes through.
Oh, really? Oh, damn, that's funny.
Yeah, that thing, if you look, it's it goes by like that. I don't know if the extended version has more of a gag there, but when something crashes through in this restaurant, you see a guy eating spaghetti, and that's him. The idea is he's supposed to look like Vito Corleone. Again, at least Corleone is not going one for one. The Godfather. That's what he was going. He was going for a Brando look.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. So then at the end, Ned Beatty, he sums it up rather nicely. Also, we probably should mention this too. It's set at Christmas time.
Oh my God, I'm so glad. Oh, Dragon, I would have been kicking myself if we never mentioned that. Yeah. This is technically a Spielberg Christmas movie.
That is true, yeah.
Isn't that nice?
It is. Oh, fun fact. I saw they shot this scene. I don't know if this is like an extend like the director's cut or if it was just something I missed when I watched the movie. So John Milius is a great cameo in this movie, where he is a deranged Santa Claus, is like waving a gun during the bedlam, and he walks up to the soldiers. But that's John Milius in a Santa costume. I assume anytime we see that guy in the Santa suit, it's probably him.
Mhm.
Anyway, but yeah. So we have kind of a Christmas setting, and like we're hanging the wreath on the door at the end. So you know what, we're not made for this, but I'm gonna hang this wreath on my door, and then the whole house goes over the edge of the cliff.
Do you know if that was like a practical, like if they actually built the full house or if it was a model that was destroyed?
You want me to tell you?
Yeah.
Real house.
Awesome. I'm so glad. I'm so glad.
That's the thing. So what happened is they had like on wires. So essentially, so they only had one shot at it, really. But essentially, it was like this.
Dragon, you know why I love that is because it very much mirrors the final shot of Duel.
Yep. That's
and again, Sammy Fableman playing with his toys.
Yep. I gotta tell you though, it's just I feel bad for the Ward Douglas character. It's such an ill-advised idea to have to give this ordinance to the civilian and destroy his house completely, and Stillwell is like no sympathy for him. He just kind of laughs at him, and that's where the movie ends.
Yeah, it's honestly a weird kind of like random beat to end the whole movie on. Honestly,
you want to hear something even more random?
Okay.
The guys from the sub, I don't know if it's both our Japanese leader and then our German and our Nazi leader here, but Christopher Lee, at the very least, is in that scene. If you look at it, really, despite him getting pretty sure he got killed during the movie, but he's just randomly there in the wide shot when the house goes over.
Oh man!
Because he wanted to see it go over. That's the only reason he's there. He just wanted to see it. Yeah,
that's funny. Richard's Victim says seasonal shenanigans 1941 when Fablemans 2 should just be about the making of this movie. Come on, Steven, do it. It'll be funny. I mean, you joke. I legitimately think there is an upside to doing a Fablemans 2. I legitimately think there is.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's about it, Dragon.
Yeah.
And final thoughts? This is the very last full Spielberg movie, folks. The only thing we have left, our season finale, which we're going to be doing on Friday, is going to be, it's not even a full movie, but we're going to be talking about Spielberg's segment, Kick the Can, from the Twilight Zone movie. And that's going to really be it. But it's a random last full movie to end out on, but I guess it's appropriate that it's the one that we've literally been trying to avoid the whole time.
No, it's very fitting. We started with Jaws, and when our last full one had the feature the parody of Jaws.
That's true. That's true. That actually, I really do like the symmetry in that.
We kind of went from debatably the most iconic Spielberg film to essentially the most infamous Spielberg film. In a sense, at least, as far as the full film goes. But this is it's. Well, again, 1941 is nothing to write home about. Again, importantly, it wasn't like as big a flop as reported. Bob Gale always likes to make it very clear that it did not flop financially. So basically, I think it's kind of a hollow victory at the end of the day. It's like, okay, fine, it didn't flop financially, but still, it's not great. That's it. Look, 1941, I think, again, learning more about it, I think, made the experience more enjoyable at the end of the day. I think that's learning like the real life basis for things and seeing what could have happened, seeing the acorns of the idea of seeing there is a good movie here, and I think in better, more experienced hands, like a screwball comedy could have also worked. Like a 40 set screwball comedy can work. We've seen comedies with period settings before. It's not out of the realm possibility, but it feels like we're kind of blending two things that are kind of opposite of each other. We have like a satire, which is what this film really probably should have been at the end of the day, given like the genesis of the film. And on the flip side of it, we have like broad cartoonish comedy with the destruction and everything which Spielberg wanted to make. So it's against two visions conflicting with each other, and the director does not have like a full his heart's not in it. He just wants to have fun.
Right.
So I can't fault him. And in our kind of our post Fablemans thing, but all this feels like a movie Sammy Fableman would kind of experiment with, but it'd be like a rare miss for him. So that's the thing. Like 1941. it's a miss, but that's kind of the point of the movie, though. The fact is, like, it's a bunch of it's not the glory of wartime like Spielberg can very competently make. Who knows? Maybe he wouldn't get there without like trying and failing on this movie. Who knows? But it's we got to it. We watched it. I have heard some people in our circles defend this movie. I don't really get the defense after watching it, but yeah, that's what Spielberg got out of his system. He had some fun with John Milius, and at the end of the day, what more can we ask for?
Okay, Richard's Victims, 1942, in theaters 2025. Can you imagine, Dragon? Can you imagine? Spielberg's like, all right, guys, we're going back to the comedy. We're going to do it right this time.
Remember, the end line of the movie was, "It's going to be a long war."
That's true. That's true. Yeah, sequel bait.
Yep, it's going to be a long war. It's just the beginning of war. There's a whole franchise of for every year of the war. That's how they do it. 1942, 1943, all the way to 45.
Oh my God! All right. He says Mel Brooks could have done it. Mel Brooks would have been perfect for this. Actually, that's a really good call.
Absolutely.
Or if it was going more the satire side of things, Spielberg has said himself that he thinks Zemeckis probably would have directed a better movie.
Yeah.
And I believe him.
Yeah, I agree.
Also, Dragon, did you know today is Mel Brooks' 98th birthday?
Get out of here, really?
I saw that on Facebook, yeah. So
happy birthday, Mel.
Kind of serendipitous that his name pops up right at the end here. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, this movie is a mess. It absolutely is. But I think there's enough stuff that I do genuinely enjoy about it that it's not like the lowest tier Spielberg for me, which mostly just comes down to his very disappointing sequels and The Post, because The Post is just very dry and boring and I don't like it. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely like, it's not far from the bottom 5, Dragon. I'll put it that way. But I don't know. It's a hot mess, but it's kind of my sort of hot mess. It's like, it's a hot mess that I look at with sort of an endearing lens. All right. Yeah, he's 98, Richard's Victims. He is, yes. He's still kicking.
I mean, he outlasted Stan Lee.
Yeah, oh yeah. All right, so big thanks to Richard's Victims, Slasher Fred, and Little Blue for joining us in the comments. Very engaging comment section as always. I really appreciate that. What it's looking like for the rest of the week, we're going to have some exciting stuff coming up. Tomorrow, we are going to be doing episode 2 of Secret Wars. Friday, like I said, we'll be covering Spielberg's segment in the Twilight Zone movie, Kick the Can. And then Sunday, God help us, God willing, it's actually decent, we'll be doing our spoiler cast for Indiana Jones and the Isle of Destiny. So, yeah. All right. Well, folks, stay tuned until next time when we round out the cinematic odyssey through one man's career in the next thrilling installment of Spielberg Mom. Do 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 do.
Hollywood.
Hollywood!
Hollywood!